Everyone in the city knew the name Julian Cross. He was the kind of man who could buy a skyscraper before breakfast and donate a hospital wing by lunch. CEO of a global tech empire, always in a tailored suit, always behind tinted windows, always in control. He had everything a person could want. Power, money, respect. But with all of that, Julian was profoundly lonely. Not that I'm too busy to date kind of lonely. We're talking about a deep, soul-crushing loneliness. Every woman he met knew his net worth before they knew his middle name. The smiles he received were always plentiful. But sincerity? That was the rarest commodity of all. So one crisp October morning, Julian made a decision that would change everything. He stepped out of his penthouse, slipped off his Rolex, and swapped his designer suit for a pair of worn jeans and a faded hoodie. He took the subway downtown, not for a stunt, not as some kind of social experiment, but as a man desperately searching for something money could never buy for 1 week. He would live on the streets. Julian Cross, the titan of industry, vanished. And in his place, Jules, the quiet guy who hung round the corner of 3rd and Maple, appeared. He spent his days sitting on park benches, watching the city rush by. He helped an old man carry his groceries. He shared stories with the local street vendors, listening to their triumphs and their troubles. Most people just passed him by, a ghost in the urban landscape. Some tossed a few coins his way. Others, the majority, ignored him completely, as if he were invisible. It was a humbling, eye-opening experience. He was seeing the world from the bottom up. And it was a view he'd never even imagined. And then, on the 3rd day of his self-imposed exile, she appeared. Her name was Ava. She was walking a scruffy but happy-looking rescue dog, and she stopped when she saw Jules trying to patch a broken umbrella with a small roll of duct tape. A gentle, genuine smile touched her lips. It's not going to hold, right? She asked, her voice warm. Julian looked up, and for the first time in a long time, he felt seen. Her eyes were a soft, welcoming green. Her smile was real. I know, he said, returning her smile. But it gives me something to do. Unlike everyone else who hurried past, Ava didn't look away. Instead, she sat down on the bench beside him. That afternoon, they talked for hours. Not about business or stocks, but about everything and nothing. They talked about books, music. Her dislike for social media and his wish that people would just listen to each other more. She never once asked where he came from, or what circumstances had led him to this bench. She simply looked at him and said, "You've got kind eyes. I hope life's kind to you too." Her words were a balm to his lonely soul. The next day, she returned with a sandwich. The day after that, a thermos of hot coffee to ward off the autumn chill. They fell into an easy rhythm, their conversations becoming the highlight of his and her day. By the 6th day, Julian knew he was in serious trouble. Not because his disguise was at risk, but because he was falling for her hard. He was falling for the woman who saw him, not the billionaire, but the man underneath. He was falling for Ava, who offered kindness without expecting anything in return. He had found the genuine connection he had craved for so long. On the morning of the 7th day, Jules vanished from 3rd Street. When Ava arrived with her dog and a warm muffin, she found his spot empty. There was no Jules, no note. Just a cold, vacant bench. Confusion and a pang of disappointment washed over her. She wondered if she'd ever see her kind-eyed friend again. But across town, a different scene was unfolding. A chauffeur opened the door of a sleek black car, and Julian Cross, clean-shaven and dressed in an impeccable suit, stepped out. He was back to being the man everyone knew, but inside, he was completely changed. His heart was full of a clarity he'd never known. He immediately got to work, making calls and arranging something special. A few days later, he walked into the small, cozy bookstore where Ava worked. She was shelving books when the bell over the door chimed. She looked up, and her eyes widened in confusion. She saw the familiar kind eyes, but the man was a stranger. "Jules?" she asked, her voice a whisper of disbelief. Julian offered a soft, slightly nervous smile. "Not exactly." Ava stared, her gaze tracing the clean-shaven face, the expensive suit. The polished shoes, the pieces clicked into place. "Wait, you're..." He raised a hand gently to stop her. I wanted to know who would see me when I had nothing. You did. And I've never forgotten it. Ava just stared at him for a long moment, processing the impossible truth. Then, a wave of emotion crossed her face. You lied to me. I know, he admitted, his voice full of sincerity. But I told you the truth where it mattered. Everything I told you about myself, about what I value, was real. There was a heavy silence. Then, Ava let out a breath that was half laugh, half exasperation, and shook her head in wonder. Only you would be insane enough to hide billions just to find a decent conversation. They went. To dinner that night, and then on many more nights after that, they fell in love all over again. This time with no secrets between them. 6 months later, they found themselves back on the same park bench where they first met. There were no bodyguards, no flashing cameras, just a quiet city evening. Julian got down on one knee, holding a small velvet box. He asked a simple, quiet question. And Ava, with tears of joy in her eyes, said yes. Their wedding wasn't in some grand ballroom or exclusive resort. They were married in the city park under a canopy of twinkling fairy lights. Street performers played jazz. Local food vendors served their best dishes to the guests. They chose this place not because they couldn't afford more, but because it was where their story truly began. It was a celebration of authenticity, of finding treasure in the most unexpected of places. And Julian Cross, the billionaire who once thought he had everything, finally learned the most valuable lesson of his life. Real riches don't come from what you own or what you can buy. They come from what you find when you have nothing to offer but your true self. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time.